There you go.
Okay. Uh, our we're nearing the end of the year, and our last meeting of the year is on June 2nd, and that's the year-end competition. And for those of you who don't know what the year-end competition is, um, what we do is we put together all of the winning images from our competitions throughout the year, and we have three judges, and the three judges score each one of the images. And the images are divided by the B class, the A class, and salon, and then into either they were an assigned image or a open image. So we end up with 6 images of the year out of all the winners that we had throughout the year. So it's a fun competition, and that'll be our last meeting of the year. Now, I sent out the planning survey sometime last week. And if you haven't taken a couple of minutes to fill out the survey, please do, because this is the basis for our planning for next year. We have an annual meeting that we do in June with the officers and the trustees, and then we make the plans for next year. So by filling out the survey, we find out what your thoughts are for assigned subjects, for speakers, for all the things that go into the plans for the year ahead.
Amazon.
I'm sorry? Okay. Did somebody say something?
I thought I heard somebody say Amazon.
Definitely.
Okay. And tonight we have the macro and close-up competition, and Roman is our judge this evening. And if you remember, Roman gave the presentation on macro photography back a couple of months ago, and hopefully everybody was inspired to get some great images, and we'll go ahead and start the competition.
All right, so welcome everybody. Yeah, I've been a member of a camera club for 35, 40 years. So member of Cranford-Millburn, camera naturalist. So yeah, been doing this for a while. And I teach all over the country, all over the world. But, you know, again, I think you guys are doing the best thing you can do for yourself is join a camera club, because that's where I learned all those years ago how to do what I'm doing. And as a judge, I'm going to tell you, you know, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. You know, it is, I've been doing it for a while. I'm a tack sharp kind of guy, but I also like soft focus when done very well. So for me, macro close-up is one of those things that I do down here in Florida now all the time, because it's the easiest thing to do. I tell people in New Jersey, New York area, and everywhere else up north, when it's snowing, you can go to the supermarket and buy flowers, and you can do close-up stuff. So for me, this is the part of photography that keeps your skills sharp. And open is open, we know that, and, but for the record, the macro close-up, I tell everybody that will listen. This is something you can do 24/7, 365 days out of the year in New Jersey. No question about it. So, thanks, Ellen.
Okay, and,
Okay, we'll get started. Just give me, Ellen, just give me 1 second.
okay. And I just, sent the information to our new member.
Yeah, listen, you know, we can wait for it. I'm okay with
Well, we've got to wait for Bill to.
Okay, I'm back.
it. Come back.
I'm
Yeah.
in the room with the air conditioning, so if it kicks on, you ain't gonna be able to hear anything I say. Okay, we're getting ready. Here we go. Share screen.
And we are recording. Okay, so that's good.
We're
Yes.
recording.
Okay, everybody see?
Yes, I see it,
Okay.
which I guess the judges kind of.
How do I get rid of? Okay. Trying to get rid of my little, there we go. Get that out of the way. All right, Cranford-Millburn, assigned B, macro and close-up. Shiny beads.
Okay, so for the record, as far as I've been judging for over 35 years, I always give the B class a little bit more leeway. Okay. Right or wrong, you can call it whatever you do. I think you've captured the colors very well. I see that you probably have an over the head light. Looks like, you know, one of the 2x4 lights. I used to work in constructions, but that's not the end of the world. I don't mind the highlights. I think you captured the colors very well. So again, watch your light source. I always preach that. Uh-oh, we went. So watch your light source when you're doing macro close-up photography, but you've maintained the colors very well. I would tighten it up a little bit just because of, you know, again, the focuses, the colors and the beads and everything else like that. Okay, so give me, it's 5 through 7, 5 through 7, and 7 goes on, right?
Yes, 6 or
Five
7.
It's 5 to 7 on the first.
All right,
whoops,
so
and
7 goes
7
on to
moves
the
on.
next round. Okay, so I'm gonna go with a 7.
Okay.
Ellen, come on, it's been a while.
Why am I frozen?
I didn't do it, I
I
swear.
know you didn't. There we go. Dandelion burst.
All right, so I really like the detail you have here because of the stem. I can see where you've gone, where it should be cropped. So in this image, if you have that much black, which I love, by the way, you really need to give yourself a border to define the edges because it's, you know, a lot going on over there. You have really, really good details in the whites. 7.
Lock and key.
All right, so again, very good exposure. I'm very impressed with the B class so far. I'm not a huge fan of getting something clipped on the edge of the frame. So for me, you either have to include it or eliminate it. Exposures, tack sharp on, love it, love it. You know, you're definitely seeing it, but something going out of the frame that's clipped, that's going to cost you. 6.
Ornamental onion.
Right, just came in. All right, again, very good exposure on the whites. Can I close down or tone down the right side a little bit? Maybe, but I like the fact that your background is minimalized. Maybe the right side of the ornamental onion can go down a little bit. But again, I think overall you did a very nice job. Again, think about composition and cropping and everything else like that. I'm a big fan of that. So just think about that in the future. 7.
Dahlia showing off.
All right, so nice lighting. I like the depth of the lighting. Most people will tell you, including me, that I think you nailed the exposure on the dahlia. I would like to see the background darkened a little bit and maybe pull down a little bit on the yellows. But overall, I think you did a very nice job. 7.
Locket.
All right, so this is one of the selective focus images that I was talking about. And for me, I don't do well on this because I have a issue. I'm tack sharp front to back guy. But here I'm looking for the focal point and the dark area. To me, when I do see selective focus, I want something razor sharp and then the depth of field fall off. So right now that locket part where the key goes in, not quite sharp enough. 6.
Slinky.
Yeah, there you go. I'm old enough to remember a slinky. So I think you handled the exposure very well. I wish you had, again, this is part of the crop thing. Wish you had left a little room to the left, little breathing room to the right. But again, this is the B class. I think you handle the exposure extremely well. And look at the room you have at the top, the bottom, little hair on the left and right. But I think the exposure, you crushed it. 7.
Dandelion gems.
All right, so here, because the dandelion, I like your background, I like your exposure. That's, 1, 2 on the thing. A little bit of the highlights, you could probably tone them down. I can't work with the gems that are showing up at that. So for me, it's between the highlights that are on the right side of the dandelion and the front of the dandelion. Background's fantastic, beautiful. I would probably work with that a little bit, and I think you can make this a little stronger. 6.
Shell.
Huh?
All right, so here I'm looking at the sharpness, and I'm not, this is close-up macro. I'm not seeing the sharpness except on the foreground areas, and it's not on the shell. I don't see the tack sharpness on the shell. So I see a little bit on the center. So you gotta, when you're doing close-up photography, you gotta be careful where your focus point is. 6.
Iris parts.
So here I'm going to say, where is my focus point? The brightest white parts of the iris, and I love irises. And you guys got it is iris season to go to the iris gardens. The brightest white part is drawing my eye up there. And then the rest of the parts, I'm kind of like, okay, what's going on? So be careful with your exposure and be careful what you're focusing in. When you're doing close-up photography, make sure your whites are not blown, because I can almost guarantee you those whites that are drawing my eye in the 12, 1 o'clock position are drawing my eye. 6.
Milkweed showing off.
All right, so again, I like the light and the dark and the play of the light and dark, but my eye is not drawn to anything but the highest or brightest parts in the 6 o'clock position, 5 o'clock position. So I need a center of focus, because otherwise I'm jumping around the milkweed. So again, you gotta give me a center point of focus. 6.
Daisy May.
All right, so to the maker, I want you to put on your RGB histogram. We always talk about the lights and the darks. This one, the yellows, your yellows are blown, at least the way it's presented on my screen. And yes, my screen is calibrated. And the oranges and the reds. So you really want to make sure that you didn't toast your yellow channel or red channel. And simple thing for that is underexpose. 6.
The Crater.
Right, I'm glad it popped in a little bit. So again, in the human eye, everything is drawn to the lighter area. So that's the left side, lower left side, and everything else like that. If you're doing this type of photography, if you had you can control the whole entire situation. Take out a flashlight and light the shadow areas, the whole 1/3 of the upper right. Because if you do that, you'll balance it, and then your camera is going to say, okay, I can tone it down a little bit, because everything else is handled pretty well. So again, the balance is my eye is being drawn to the light areas. 6.
Peony in pink.
All right, so again, when you're photographing white, you got to make sure there's depth in that white. And you've got a decent amount of it. And I'm going to say that central part is actually very good. But, the dark area, again, similar to the black area, is drawing my eye. So again, focus on your composition. Make sure those whites have the depth to it. 6.
Iris 2.
All right, so consistency. I like your composition, but your yellows and your whites are a little bit pushed. And I think if you go into post-processing and you pull down your highlights and you pull down your yellows in selective color, I think you're going to make this shine. The darker area, we're not talking about a nature competition. We're talking about that you can do whatever. I think you need to get rid of that black little streak, looks like almost a comma. So I think you'd be stronger if you did that. 6.
Hibiscus Beauty.
Again, I think you've handled it decently. To me, pull down the yellows, go into selective color and or saturation and pull down your yellows. And again, why did you leave that much room on the bottom? I'm looking at it and then I'm putting my hand up and saying, okay, I've got that much on top. Leave that much on the bottom. Crop tool is the most underutilized tool in the, toolbox. 6.
Okay.
Eight. Eight. 8. 8. Hmm. 8. If you've got the room, add it, but I think your exposure and everything is 9.
Sign B macro and close-up, honorable mention. Jim, I'm sorry about your last name, Jim. Jim Bonacantry. Dandelion burst, Leon Lubransky. Ornamental onion, Edward Schulman. Dahlia showing off, Francine Silva. Equal merit, Slinky, Jim Bonacantry.
Congratulations.
Oh, we didn't hit. Okay, now on to assigned A, macro and close-up. Bud.
All right, so we've stepped up a notch in the classes. And again, these are, again, they're not huge differences in what I'm going to say. So for me, I think the highlights need to be toned down a little bit, as does the color. But I want to see it against the rest of them. 7.
Becoming beautiful.
All right, so I really like the treatment here. Sharpness. I don't mind the fall off to the back. I don't mind the colors and everything else like that. 7.
White flower.
So consistency. I need to say, all right, I need a border. When you got black on black and you can see it on the screen as well as I do, you need to do that. And that being said, because of that, the highlights I think can be toned down quite a bit. So border, give yourself a border, tone down the highlights. I think this would score higher in the next competition. 6.
Do it.
Again, I like the thought process that you have here. And again, for me, selective focus is one of those things that I struggle with, but the brightest part of the image is the dew. And my eye is drawn to the sharpest side. And again, I'm saying you could get a different score with a different judge. But because that brightest part is where it is, it doesn't keep my eye there. 6.
Fungus.
All right, you got very good detail throughout the fungus. Probably would take a little bit off the bottom to make those 2 bright spots not there. And maybe try to open up the shadows and the highlights. But I think the sharpness and depth is where it needs to be. 7.
Insect on fern.
All right, very, very good detail throughout. I mean, again, close-up photography, this is where you're going to go. And again, we're talking about minor critique, maybe pull down some of the yellows, but I think sharpness is dead on. 7.
Fiddlehead fern.
All right, so I was hoping this one would snap in. It's pretty good. I would probably, again, it's a vertical composition, vertical subject, so I would probably take off the right, take off the left. Glad you gave me the edge and the border. 7 for now.
Fix it in post.
All right, interesting. It's sharp where it needs to be, but I'm gonna, again, to be consistent, the brighter spots are drawing my eye. I like your subject. I really admire the maker for choosing this, but some of the brighter spots, including the, what is it, 11 o'clock little white spot. And again, we could have fixed it in post and given your title. So the brighter areas are always going to draw the eye. Just a guarantee. So 6.
Blossom.
All right. Don't want to be a repeated record, but again, the whites to me could be pulled down. I want more detail in there. Like your composition, like everything else like that, but definitely want a little bit more definition in the whites. 6.
Maple tree seeds closing up. Close up, excuse me.
Really good detail on this. I did grow up in New Jersey, so I will say maybe a little oversaturated, but I think your detail and the subject, and I don't think you went over the top, maybe a little less yellow. 7.
Tulip.
Love the darker background. I think some of the brighter areas, just tone them down a little bit. So pull down your highlights. And then again, tighten it up, because bottom line is you're showing me the tulip. I don't need as much on the bottom, as much on the top, left or right. So if you tone down those highlights, I think you've got something special there. 6.
Stream of consciousness.
All right, I'm going to debate whether this is a close-up, but again, I always give the benefit of the doubt. I'm okay with that. Very, very cool concept. And I like how you've maintained the colors here. Don't know what it is, feathers, other stuff. I think you should be commended for this, because you've chosen a subjects that I'm not sure what they are, but you handled the exposure extremely well, 7.
All right.
Eight. Even with the fall off, 9. Eight. Because this is the higher class, tone down the yellows a little bit, but 8 for now. Gonna be consistent, crop it, get a higher score, 8 for now. Yeah, you heard me say it, saturation down a little bit on the yellows, 8. 9.
Signed A. Honorable mention. Bud, Jim Chaland. Fungus, Jim Chaland. Insect on Fern, Wendy Milligan. Fiddlehead Fern, Wendy Kaplitz. Maple Tree Seeds Close Up, Wendy Milligan. Equal Merit, Becoming Beautiful, Wendy Milligan. Stream of Conscience, Fernando Gomes. Congratulations. Assigned Salon, Macro and Close Up. A bright idea.
Cool subject, I gotta say, and I'm gonna look at different angles on my bulb. I think you handled the whites and the darks and the shadows a little bit more, but I think you could have, again, we're talking salon, right? A little bit less on the whites, and I'm talking a hair, but I gotta be picky, but still 7 deserves to be in the next round.
Wild Geranium.
Beautifully handled. Colors look very good, sharp where it needs to be, 7.
Dahlia Rear View.
I like the fact that the maker chose the back of the dahlia, one of my favorites to look from the other side. It is sharp in the back of the dahlia. I do think that on the right side, 4 o'clock position and the 11 o'clock position on the upper left, a little bright, and I think you can deal with that with the crop because the sharpness where it needs to be is where it is, and maybe a hair down on the yellows, but I like your vision of seeing this. So for now, 7.
I'm a star.
Tack sharp. Nice positioning. Good detail in all the whites. Not seeing anything crazy, 7.
Daisy.
So I would like, and my recommendation to the maker is see if you could pull up shadow highlights a little more because the dark brown, black areas, they're brown. I know they're brown. Should be a little lighter. I like where you've got the focus, so don't go overboard. But for now, 6.
Pink Dahlia Center.
Again, here your colors are very well handled. I think all your colors throughout are very good and how you composed it. I don't mind the centered composition. I really don't. 7.
Lord of the Flies.
You know, I always tell everybody, I know we're not going to hang these on our wall, the bugs. But you know, again, they are very cool. Here, your body, thorax, abdomen, whatever they're called, all of the above, are really, really sharp. You're you're losing it a little bit on the eye, and that's where the issue comes. You know, when you're doing a bug, pick a bug, you want the eye to be razor sharp, just like a human being. 6.
Red Trillium.
Yeah, one of the things I missed from New Jersey. So the center yellows, I think you could pull down the yellows a little bit. And it's on the background as well, so that the trillium really shows up. 6.
Chinese Magnolia.
I love IK, so I'm gonna do my eyes for my light. So again, this is a nice high key. I've got enough details in the white to really set it off against the background. And again, I love a high key picture of a flower. So just the hair toned down the left side of the whites. 8. 8. You heard my comments. 8. 9. 9. 9.
Assigned Salon. Honorable mention. A Bright Idea. Lenny McDonald. Wild Geranium. Charlene Fedorowitz. Dahlia. Rear View. Ellen Stein. Equal Merit. I'm a Star. Lenny McDonald. Pink Dahlia Center. Ellen Stein. Chinese Magnolia. Ellen Stein. Congratulations. Open B. Looking Down.
Okay, so you've handled the exposure on the buildings and everything else relatively well. But again, my eye is drawn to the brightness of the clouds. So, don't know if you have it, you know, a split neutral density filter or whatever. But I think part of it becomes that in today's age, you can do multiple exposures and blend them, because I think right now my focus is on the trees, kind of, but then it's drawn up to the clouds. 6.
Rabia.
All right, I think you handled the exposure on her pretty well. Okay, so again, she's looking to my left. And for me, those two, I've got, spots on my sensor as big as that. So just go look for yourself and take them out. Okay, I don't mind that it's lighter. And that lighter spot that's in the upper left corner and the blue light on their hair. So again, in today's world, we can tone down the blue on her hair because I think the lighting on her face is wonderful. So, and maybe the top of her head, you can tone it down a little bit. But given we're still in the B class, right? I'm not missing anything. We're going to go with a 7, but you've got my recommendations to make this stronger.
Siberian Iris.
All right, so beautiful flower. My mother grew these and it's all very nice, but I'm not seeing the detail throughout it. And I think just a simple brightness contrast layer, tone it down a little bit will help this quite a bit. So just think about that. Tone it down, brightness contrast. I think you'll do better with this in the next turnaround. 6.
Central Park.
All right, so you've got some nice leading lines here using what you've got, but look at what you have here. The figure on the left, the bright orange, reddish thing that he's got on his seat. And then I've got the whiter shirts in the background. Part of photography is you got to be very aware of the light. So I think if you went with half of the image as a vertical, me looking at it where you've got the gentleman in the foreground, because the other people are accessories. They're not really that strong. And I think if you eliminated them and a little bit conversely off the top, I think you would have a stronger image. Make it a much stronger vertical. 6.
Black Skimmers.
All right, so time of day, time of day, time of day, I'm going to tell you. And the light angle. So the light's coming from my right. I'm happy that you're capturing the birds in flight. That's awesome. But just like anything else, if I don't see the face, yeah, no. I need to see the face on the individuals because I'm not I'm not interested in their butts. Sorry. But, that's the reality. You do a portrait of a model and anything, I want to see the face. 6.
Daisy being cute.
She is being cute. So again, you've captured the light actually very well. So nothing's really blown out, not on her snout or anything else like that. If you're going to do portraits again like this, I would highly recommend to pop up your flash so we can get a little bit more light in her eyes. But again, that might blow out a lot of the stuff given the light. So see if you can pull up Daisy's eyes a little bit more. 6.
Spring Bouquet.
All right, I love high key images on a light table. Sad I got rid of my massive light tables. You got really nice detail throughout. My only recommendation would be to take a little bit of the greenery off the right and add it to the left, compositionally. But I think, again, very nicely handled. 7.
Yellow-bellied sapsucker.
All right, so again, get consistency. I want you to see the face and all the, you know, stuff with it. So for me, you've got decent exposure overall, but because I can't see the face and the bill is hidden, it's taken away from some of the story, and you've got a lot of background. You know, we now have Topaz Denoise, Topaz Gigapixel AI. So think about all those things. 6. I really like this. I think you've captured a nice look, but you heard what I said. I'm gonna go with the 8. And even though I said what I said, I can live with a 9. Again, for the person, the maker before the image before, do some of the tweaks. I think you're going to get a higher score.
Open B, honorable mention. Rabia, Edward Schulman. Equal merit, Spring Bouquet, Margot Partridge. Here we go. Open A, Pink.
All right, so I like your composition. It might be a little tighter off the top, but I'm not seeing as much detail. I'm moving around in the pinks because again, you're presenting me this, and for me, I think I need a little bit more detail in all of the colors. I think you could tweak them and pull them out. 6.
A Blaze of Beauty.
There are always exceptions to the rule. Okay. So you got a really good detail in the daffodil, the whites and everything else like that. My only recommendation, again, recommendation, maybe pull down on some of the yellows and take a little bit off the bottom so you have the similar space as you do on the top. But given the detail that you have in the daffodil, yeah, nicely done. 7.
Leaf It at the Door.
Very good detail. Very good exposure. Again, beautiful detail at the door and the leaves. So I think you did it very nicely. And actually, this has a nice compositional feel to it. 7.
Half and half.
All right, so here your light is a little harsh. So either underexpose, by the way, you know, that's an option as well, because your yellows, and look at your yellow channel, it's probably blown. So the only, you know, realistic thing to do in photography is to underexpose. But again, you saw this nicely. 6.
Fungus 2.
All right, so this one has a nicer exposure to it. For the most part, your highlights here on the whites, so pull back your highlights is going to be my first recommendation. And your base, I don't need to see 1/3 of the image as your base. I think you take, you know, quarter of it out, makes it stronger compositionally, and pull down your highlights. 6.
Purple flower.
All right, unique presentation. And, you know, if you're looking at this on your screen like I am, there's 1/3 of the frame that I really have the dark space. So similar to white, I'm going to be drawn to that. So while, again, I like your dramatic composition and color and choices, I don't need at least a third of the right, no, half of the right and a quarter of the left. And then it would be, okay, what am I looking at? A dramatic lighting situation. 6.
Spring serenity.
All right, pop then. All right, this has a very soft painterly feel. I think you did well with your placement of the tree and everything else like that. So overall, I think compositionally and lighting, you handled it well. 7.
Watchung spring.
All right, so here the trees are, at least on my screen, bright. I think if you tone this down, darken it a couple of picture points, I think you're going to really do that and take your yellows down a little bit, because even the bark of the trees, and I grew up in Jersey, so I think you need to pull it down a little bit. And then I'm looking at the composition. I like where you place the trees, but again, tone it down and darken it. 6.
Venus de Trillo.
Okay, so I always love when people see things, you know, and abstracts and everything else like that. Um, and good title, by the way. So for me, a little bit, again, tone down some of the whites. Your eye is always drawn to it. I like what you saw, but I think taming the highlights down a little bit will pull this up another level. 6.
Staircase.
So interesting scene, you know, again, you know, there's, I admire people who see things that, you know, you just don't normally see. This image is almost cut in half on the diagonal. So I'm trying to see, did I really need that upper part of it? And you presented it almost as a square. So for me, I think if you dropped a third of the upper part of it, I think it would be stronger presentation. 6.
Tulip close up.
I think you handled the colors and the lightness very well. Maybe a third less brightness contrast and toning down the yellow, but I think you did a good job with this. 7.
Exchange place in Midtown.
All right, so I'm gonna, again, I understand the whole distance and everything else like that. And maybe the light, but for me here, the light is a little bit harsh. I don't know that you would pull out all the detail in all the buildings because none of them look particularly sharp. 6. Even with what I said about the crop, I think This is 9. Also a 9. 8. A hair down on the yellows and the lightness. 8.
Open A, honorable mention. Spring Serenity, Wendy Milligan. Tulip Close-Up, Wendy Milligan. Equal Merit, A Blaze of Beauty, Wendy Milligan. Leave It at the Door, Fernando Gomes. Congratulations. Now to the final open salon. Purple Iris.
You know, it always get tougher with someone. Again, I like your detail, I like your composition, and I really like the background. I'm gonna nitpick and maybe the yellow of the stem a little bit less, but for now, 7.
Tulip.
Dramatic lighting. I'm a fan of the darker backgrounds. I think your lighting throughout this is very nice. 7.
Misty Morning Reflection.
Again, tough exposure here, but I think you handled it very, very well. Again, we're talking salon, maybe darken the background a little bit to bring out a little bit more details in the clouds, but again, for now, 7.
Red and White Dahlia.
All right, so here the whites are a little bit, again, lacking in the detail. I want a little bit more out of them. 6.
Frog.
So again, consistency. I try to be consistent. The lot of the back of the frog has the highlights on it, and he's kind of looking away from me, so the face is good. So I'd probably say could have gone vertical in this instance, because half of the frame is showing me all the highlights in the back parts of it. 6.
Happy Spring Indeed.
Sure. Nice capture. Again, I'm gonna say, see if you can pull this down a couple of points in brightness contrast, because I think you'll bring out the details in the wings of the dragonflies. And that's going to make this much stronger. Highlights, brightness contrast, and that's going, I think, make this image really pop. 6.
White Orchids.
Tough lighting conditions. You've got the light areas on the back flowers and the light areas on some of the main focus flowers. Again, I think you could pull it down with the highlights. 6.
Window at Batso Village.
I like the detail you've got going on in here. The stucco has the detail in it. You've got everything going on in the wood and everything else, the shutters and the window itself. 7.
Oops.
Yeah. 2 fish. Oops. Yeah, no. So, I think here the lighting is working against you, because given the direction of the light source and the head that's not in the light, this dream for a wildlife photographer catching 2 fish, never mind, okay, you drop one. And it's a little bit yellow. So light angles hurting you in this situation. 6. All right, you got to be more critical about Salon. 8, 9. You can eke more detail out of that sky. 8. 8.
Open Salon, honorable mention. Purple Iris, Ellen Stein. Misty Morning Reflection, Lenny McDonald. Window at Batstow Village, Charlene Fedorowitz. Equal Merit, Tulip, Charlene Fedorowitz. And that concludes our tonight. Okay.
Does anyone have any questions for Roman?
I hope they're easy ones.
Okay, I don't hear any questions from anybody.
So I got a question. Bill, how long have you been a member?
Probably about 4 years now. I think
Oh,
4 years now. Actually, I got introduced to the club by Jackie Dicker.
wow, nice.
Because
Yes.
I was looking to expand the different subjects I wanted to photograph, and she recommended joining the club.
Yeah. And how do you feel about that recommendation?
I like it. It pushes me to do things better for things I wasn't very good at. And
I
actually,
always say if you look at Jackie's work, with the rust thing,
oh,
yeah, it's like
I'm going, I was in the same place. How did I not see what she sees? Her
and that
frozen water, her ice too, in the winter is another one.
well, and that's why I tell people, I said that's what the camera club been a member for 40 something years. That's why I tell people, I said, that's what when you meet people like that, when you talk to people like that, and you see what they're photographing, and you're just like, I was in the same place. Wait, what? What did I miss? It's amazing. It is
Yes.
amazing. And that's why I say, wait, where are we going to get this bargain? You go online, I get it. I get it. I've done countless stuff. Camera Club to me is the most amazing place.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah, well,
glad that, Jackie inspired you. I'm going to actually call her up and talk to her and say,
I actually knew I knew most of the family because I went to school with her younger sister, Jill.
okay,
So I didn't even realize she was a photographer until way after we were out of school and everything.
yeah. Well, I don't want to be old, but I knew her father. I was in the camera club with her father. you know that's
Yes.
you know so that is where these people taught me, and I'm like, what, it's incredible. It's
Yeah.
incredible what we can do now. And I tell people, I said, competitions, take what I say and live with it. Been doing this a while, and hopefully that's why I try to give all my recommendations. And Ellen, you're okay with me saying if you need me, if you have a question for me, just send me an email. And if you want me to say, how can you fix this? How can you do whatever? I'm okay with that. I've always been. Um, and hey, listen, I dragged Ellen in, and now she's whatever president for how long, and probably regretting that I dragged her in there and whatever. So, you know, if they have a question for me, you know, I'm okay. I have a little bit of a thick skin, right? I see a question. Is there a competition next month? I think it's end of the year, right? You guys are in
It's Leon, it's the end of the year competition. What happens with that is that all the winning images from the entire year are put together, and we come up with 6 images of the year. And that's on June, wait a second, let me get the correct date.
Second.
Yeah.
That's on June 2nd, and that will be at the community center.
And this idiot won't be your judge.
I've got to find 3 judges for that.
Then I'm out. You know, you know
No,
that.
you're totally out. We need them in person.
There we go. So, all right. Great seeing everybody
Okay, if
and
there are
seeing
no
the
more
new
questions,
faces.
yeah. Any other questions? If there aren't any questions, I'll say good night to everybody and hope to see you in 2 weeks.
And you know,
Roman, thank you.
no problem. If they have
Great
any
judging like
questions,
always.
if they have any questions, let them ask me. Give them my email, even if it's hate email. I'm okay with that. You know that.
Okay,
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night.
good night.